remember the first time. First time Michael Chandler and Paddy the Baddy met. And the reason I remember it was the excitement that Paddy had. You know, he'd watch Michael Chandler fight, and I think Paddy had 2 fights in the UFC at this point. And you gotta understand, Paddy is for sure a top 10 draw in the sport. I'm not sure he's not top 5. And that's high praise. But Paddy's never fought for a title, and Paddy's never main evented. Big deal. To be a top 10 draw without having the power of the machine behind you yet, it's a big deal. And Paddy is not who you think he is, by the way. Like, I have changed my tone speaking about Paddy. I thought it was a gimmick. He got a haircut, like, what was that old band called the Monkees, and he says some funny things, and he can squabble pretty well, and he's popular in a certain region. Well, no, it's not a gimmick. And frankly, he's not a little kid with funny things to say and an interesting haircut. I mean, this is a man. Let me just give you something you might find interesting, because you probably agree with me that you look at Paddy as kind of fun more than serious. He's married with 2 kids. Are you aware of that? I mean, this is a grown man who, by the way, is undefeated in the UFC. Like, I have not seen anything from Paddy that would disqualify him from having the potential to be a world champion. As a matter of fact, I believe he is 2 fights away, and they got to be the right fights, 2 fights away from fighting for the world championship. Not only in the world of promotion, because when you're popular, you can get some opportunity. I think you guys will demand it. If they're the right 2 fights, and they go the right way, he will be the rightful number 1 contender. Okay. But you got to appreciate that, because at the time that Paddy the Baddy met Michael Chandler, somebody had a camera. They were behind scenes at a UFC. I believe Paddy was competing and Chandler was there. And Chandler at that time was reserved for a main event with the biggest star in our sport, Conor McGregor. So Chandler was in a very good and interesting position. I believe he was ranked in the top 5. Here you've got this younger kid coming through, and Paddy treated him like that. Paddy was genuinely excited to meet him. And I believe it was Megan O'Leary. If I'm wrong, it could have been Heidi. Did an interview with Chandler right after they met and kind of said, hey, that could be a future opponent. Chandler said no. Chandler said, he's on his way up. And he said, I'm on my way out. That's how he worded it. He said, talking about himself, he said, I'm 36 years old. He's 27 years young. By the time he gets into the top 5 to ever be matched up with me, I will be long gone. And that was Chandler's plan. Chandler was set for a multi-million-dollar match with Conor McGregor, which would change the trajectory of how long he was going to do this sport. It was a very fair comment by Chandler. And I remember hearing it, and I remember being a little disappointed because I wanted to see that fight. I thought that'd be an interesting fight. But I knew Chandler was right. Chandler will be gone. He's going to fight McGregor. That goes well. I'm sure it would. He believed he was going to go in for a world title. If he had a world title fight and lost, he would call it a career. I believe that was Chandler's plan at that point. Now, I'm bringing that to you because they made the fight. We got Paddy the Baddy versus Michael Chandler. Interesting fight. And it's a big compliment being paid to both guys. That's a big opportunity for Paddy to get a play with one of the top-ranked guys. But it's a big compliment to Michael Chandler, who's coming off a loss. Michael Chandler is coming off a loss and is going to take on a guy who in the history of his time in the promotion has never lost. So if you're the matchmakers, if you're Dana, you respect and appreciate both guys. It really is a compliment that this match got made. It doesn't change the fact of the awkwardness. Like, there are certain guys that have heat with Paddy the Baddy. Chandler is not one of those guys. And Paddy the Baddy has always used a little bit of personal animosity as a way of motivating himself. And Paddy will go find it. If you don't start with him, if you don't have heat with him, Paddy will come and attack you just so you attack him, just so he can have some personal standing in the fight. And that's just not a component here. It's a very interesting fight. I'll tell you this, and we'll do a breakdown and we'll see who DraftKings has as the favorite as the fight gets closer. But fighting Michael Chandler off a loss, if there's ever a time to not have to face that son of a bitch, it's off a loss. I've been following Michael Chandler since he was a collegiate athlete at Missouri. And he wasn't undefeated. But boy, you'd have a hard time going and finding 2 matches in a row that he lost. It's an interesting time for both these guys. I love the fight. And I feel like it is strengthening my previous hypothesis, which is Paddy's only 2 fights away. 2 fights away from the world title if they're the right fights. And this is one of those 2. But it certainly qualifies as the right fight.